Good morning, everyone. This is Wednesday's video for ancient civilizations. I'm going to go over three things today. We're going to go over your geography notes that you took yesterday. I'm going to give you a little visual on what the monsoon winds look like. And then I'm going to introduce our new map project. Cool. So if you haven't already, please get out your themes chart. We're going to go over the geography notes that you took yesterday. So feel free to pause this video and get that out. I'm going to show you what I have for my notes. Please do not compare yourself to me and think that, oh my God, my notes look nothing like Tyler's. I'm a failure. No, remember, we're practicing this skill of note taking, and I want you to experiment on your own. And just because yours looks different from mine doesn't make them any better or worse. That's just the way your mind works, the way you organize things. So that's great. What I want to accomplish by showing you my notes is just how I organize my notes. And I want to make sure that we're all in the same page in terms of the content. So what are the geographic features and what effects they had on society? Okay, so I'm going to show you mine. Okay, cool. So here are my notes. I merged those two boxes. I talked a bit about that yesterday, but I basically made three big notes and then created some subnotes around those, okay? So feel free to pause this video at any time if you're like, oh, I missed that. That's a pretty big point that I forgot to put in my notes. You can add that to that right now. That's why I'm showing you these notes, okay? So the big idea is the Indian subcontinent. This was the idea that mountains and water separated India from other regions. So even though India is a part of the Asian continent, it's almost separated into a subcontinent because of the water around it and the mountains as well. So it's almost its own little continent within the Asian continent. So that's going to provide a lot of protection. I added that with my cool little arrow trick. So the Himalayas and the Hindu Kush mountains were there. They brought some earthquakes, which definitely had an impact on society. The Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, which were part of the Indian Ocean, that brought not only protection, but trading as well. So the next bullet point is I've got the Indus and Ganges and Savarti rivers. They are a water source, drinking water, brought fertile soil. They also brought destructive floodings. Okay, I added the alluvial plain down there, which was the flat area of fertile soil along the river. So we're seeing something a little bit different here is instead of the fertile soil being right along the riverbanks and not much outside of that, we're seeing that fertile soil really spreading out on either side of the riverbanks in a really wide area. And that's what the alluvial plain is all about. Okay, something new that we haven't talked about this year is these monsoon winds, which are basically just seasonal winds. They change, the direction of the wind change with the season. That's what makes them a monsoon wind. In the winter, there was cold, dry air from the north. In the summer, there is hot, wet air from the south. I'm going to visually demonstrate that. And then I put down farmers relied on the summer rains to grow crops. Okay, so those are my notes around geography. If you missed a big idea, feel free to add to your notes in whatever way, but everyone needs to have these ideas down in some way in their notes. Okay, I'm going to move on to the visual of the monsoon map. Okay, stop share. Okay. So at this point, why don't you guys get out a separate sheet of paper? It can be just a scratch sheet. It can be blank, it can be lined, doesn't really matter. And let's just do a rough sketch of what I have here. You don't need all this extra stuff. but I would include maybe just the Asian continent and the Indian subcontinent. Doesn't need to be perfect. We're just going to keep it simple and the big ideas here. Okay. So I'm going to go over what the monsoons actually look like. In the summer, the winds are coming up from the south. Okay, so they're blowing from the south to the north. Now, what kind of air is blowing up there? Well, this is the Indian Ocean. So the air is really moist. It has a lot of moisture in it because it's evaporating from the Indian Ocean. So that wind that's blowing that air up is very wet. It has a lot of moisture in it. Not only that, but my equator is down here. And we know that everything around the equator is really hot. So not only is that air moist from the ocean, but it's also really hot from the equator. So I'm going to write hot and wet. Okay, so that is the type of air that's being blown in from the south. Now in the winter, something totally different happens. Our winds shift and they start coming in from the north and heading to the south. Now, what type of air is being blown in? Well, it's going to be dry air because this is a huge landmass here and there's not a lot of water to be evaporated from. So that air is going to be dry. And then what's the temperature going to be like? Is it going to be hot or cold? Well, we know the farther you get away from the equator, the farther you get towards the north and south poles, the colder it gets. So this area up here is pretty cold. So the air that's being blown in is not only dry, but it's cold as well. Okay, so that is your visual representation of the monsoon winds. Summer months and the winter months. And I'm just going to keep it as that. Cool. So feel free to pause this and jot some of this information down. You are going to be responsible for representing this in your own way in the next map project, which I'm going to talk about right now. So make sure you have some sort of note around these ideas because you're going to demonstrate this in your own map come right now. Let's get into it. I have posted an assignment on, hopefully we're still connected. Cool. On My Country Day, it's called Map of India Project. Come on, computer, you can do it. Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. Sorry, guys. Okay, interesting. Thank you. All right. You're going to find this under assignments. You're going to find Map of India Project. And let's go ahead and look at the assignment sheet. This is going to look very familiar to your map of the ancient world and your Egypt map. I'm basically giving you a list of things to include in your map. You're going to freehand this. Everyone's is going to look a little bit different. Plan it out. Understand where these geographic features are and how you are going to represent them. Okay, so it says, create a map of India that includes the following items. Resources, use your textbook 6.1, explore page 1. There's a really nice map there that you can use as a resource for this project. Okay, so it's all pretty self-explanatory here. You're going to find all these mountains and land features and water features in that map on 6.1. Don't forget your map essentials. And lastly, the monsoons. Draw a visual representation of the winter and summer monsoons. Be sure to define and label them in your key. Okay, so basically what we just went over, you need to represent in your map somehow, some way. You guys have a lot of creative flexibility with this, as you always do. Everyone's map is going to look a little bit different, but you need to make sure you're including all of these required components. I'm thinking that you can do this just on a regular sheet of computer paper. You can do it landscape or portrait, however you want. And let me know if you've got any questions. If you want to do a rough draft, you can start with that. If you start a rough draft and you like the way it looks and want to keep that for your final, go for it. That's what we're going to be doing today. And let me know if you've got any questions. Thanks for listening. See you later.